As I look through some of my earlier entries, I notice that I am using words at times that don't seem completely right, even though they may have initially. It is clear that the host that I occupy when I visit this world is physically incapacitated, but I am not certain about his mental state, and how that may or may not affect my own written thoughts, as I feel as though I am somehow using Henry, my host, as a kind of passive translator. I see glimpses of things when I search for your words, and I assume they are images from his memory, as they feel like they are coming from my own memories, though they can't be, because they are all certainly from your world, and not mine. Getting back to my world, the reports came in soon after the chase involving the saboteurs' unidentified craft, and 2 of our scouts ended with the unfortunate destruction and death of whoever was on board the UC. With that goes at least 1 unnecessary death, and a lot of the answers that we would have been guaranteed. Apparently, the UC and the scouts were about matched equally in terms of speed, and the weather in that stretch of the Razorstone Pass was particularly unstable, so the chase was basically reduced to a long-range standoff, until the weather lessened, and the UC began to maneuver a bit more. That was when they started trying to drop pulse swells and detonated them in the air. Pulse swells are what we use for scanning and raising, but they detonated just above the surface of the ground. They can cause a bit of a disturbance on mechanical equipment on the ground, but other than the flash of light, it really only amounts to nothing more than a light power surge or static electric shock. Once they were able to move more freely, the UC climbed quickly and short-dropped 2 pulse swells within just a few particks. It would appear that they had hoped the explosions would cause more of a distraction or even damage, but there was no reason to think that they would affect machines any differently in the air than they did on the ground. It was also ridiculous that they didn't think that their own craft wouldn't be subject to the same effects, since pulse swells explode omnidirectionally. Once they broke into the expanse, they were able to maneuver more freely, but several scouts were responding, and the UCS reserves had to be low, so they took to some nearby canyons and ended their run fatally when they turned into a steep face and seemed to misjudge their distance when they climbed to clear it. It could very well have not been an accident at all. One drawback to snap-time technology is that some people choose to take their own lives when faced with being captured and would have no ability to hide where you have been and what you have said and done. Like I've stated, our health is just as tied to our minds as it is to our bodies. Sometimes the shame of what snap-time can reveal is more damaging to the person in question than the actual crime that is being proven to be with. So, unfortunately, suicide to avoid snap-time does occur, but it is usually not out of fear of retribution by someone else. It is the perpetrator's own pride that brings them to such a wasteful end. This was serious, but now that it was down in the expanse, there were a lot more resources to cover what was necessary. They have several rovers down there, and I have either worked with or trained every single one of them. Some are better than others, but any of them are competent to oversee a physical investigation and interview the Guardians who are operating scouts for 43 and 074. Up here, in the overlands, we were already stretched thin with 4 investigations on opposite sides of the region. I would have had to make other arrangements anyway, even if things had not ended down there. We were now getting the bulk of the findings from the 2 disturbance sites up in the Crystal Plains, and they indicated, as I had guessed, that a significant amount of the crystal that was estimated to have been sheared was not accounted for, so even if the UC was the culprit in all 4 places, there would have to have been at least 1 other ship needed to haul that amount of crystal away. And if they considered that a success, despite losing 1 of their ships and at least 1 of their people, they would likely try it again. I told Sam, our lead operator, to turn north. Endeavor was headed back to the Crystal Plains.